Welcome back to the channel. This is the Action Figure Grader, and I wanted to look at some recent sales for CGC-Graded comic books on eBay. And we are going with everything from golden, silver age, all the way through to modern. Just some books that I had my eye on and wanted to get an idea of how the market is holding up. And for a few of the bigger books, we did pull up the Go Collect data so we can compare the most recent sale to how the book has been trending to see whether it was a good deal or not. I have no idea what you guys collect in terms of comics. If you have specific coverage topics as it relates to CGC books in terms of certain books you're looking for, certain books that you currently hold, and you want to have a better idea of where the market is right now, let me know in the comments and I'll try to include it in the next one. All right. So let's take a closer look at some really nice books. I've got them kind of semi-organized here. At first blush, I thought this book was a pretty good deal. And so we'll take a look at the Go Collect data in a second. This is Amazing Spider-Man #1. Obviously, the origin of Spider-Man retold, the second overall appearance ever of Spider-Man in comic books, the first appearance of J. Jonah Jameson and the Chameleon, first Fantastic Four crossover. So lots going on in this book. We all know it and love it. And this one had some restoration / issues. So that's why the price is what it was. It sold for $26.51 in an auction. But if you look at the CGC label there, the spine of the cover completely split and reattached with tape. Tape on interior cover. Piece out of pages 1 through 3. Slightly affects story. Incomplete. So, again, not perfect, but about as budget-friendly as you're going to get for a blue label CGC book. And I don't know why certain books get the purple label of death where it's been restored. Why other books that are big like this one can still get the blue label. But you know, they clearly tell you what the issues are on the CGC label. So I don't know if it really matters either way. But you can see there, $26.51. And then when you go to the Go Collect data for a 1.5, the fair market value, according to them, is $4,100. And so you got to dig in a little bit and really compare it. And the one and a half that sold in July of 2025, it did not have these types of issues with it. It just was a 1.5. So, you know, it's clearly worth more. And if you're looking at all the recent sales, excluding the ones that, you know, either had, were flagged for, let's see what they say here. Sale identified as a best accepted sale. So Go Collect doesn't know what the actual sales price is. So it's still tracked, but it's not included in the averages. So when you see those little red warning labels there. So, but still going back through all the way back to May of this year, $51.75, $49.05, $54.50, $5,000, and then $40.51. And then obviously this sale at $26.51. So it's a significant discount, but obviously it's because of the restoration and other issues with the book. But still, to me, that feels like a pretty good deal for as about a budget-friendly blue label as you can get for ASM #1. This was a beautiful copy of ASM 43. This is the first full appearance of Mary Jane Watson, the origin of the Rhino, one of the big villains. Great cover. It was also a 9.4 with white pages. That's a beautiful looking book there, and obviously sold for a big number at $18.70. But you know, it's a secondary key from the Silver Age Spider-Man books. I've always loved it. I would love to get this one to pair with my, it was an ASM 41, which is the first appearance of Rhino. But this is a great cover. I really do like that one. And very high grade, beautiful book. Next up, this was an interesting Spider-Man book that's a little bit more modern, but I wanted to at least show it because it's so weird. This is the Japanese edition, third printing of Venom Lethal Protector. I can't talk. And this was a 9.8. The dust jacket on it got a 9.6. It is the only 9.8 in the world, but it's a foreign variant, but it's got the Japanese writing on it. And, my experience has been that most people just don't care about foreign variants for key issue books. But I did think it was worth showing because it's so unique in terms of how it's presented there. So apparently it has a dust jacket on it, and it came out in 2021, which is well past when the original Venom Lethal Protector came out in 1990-ish. So, it's just not for everybody, but I just thought I'd show it because it was so cool looking, and it sold for $528. Another big Golden Age book, Silver Age book, is Avengers #1. Obviously a Jack Kirby cover that is pretty renowned. Origin and first appearance of the Avengers. 4.5 CGC 4.5 off-white pages, and that sold in an auction for $20.25. And again, this is not a book I cover regularly, but probably about as affordable or as expensive as a book as I would look at for this particular book. So I wanted to kind of take a closer look at the CGC data for this one. But look at that. So it's got the Avengers fighting Loki. You got Thor, the Hulk, the early Iron Man, and then Ant-Man there. So pretty cool looking book there, and obviously a big one. And so you can see how this one stacks up. And maybe you attribute the sale to a seller for both of these books, ASM #1 as well as this Avengers #1. They were both sold by a seller that only had 22 feedback and only had 92.3% positive feedback. So that could have scared people off. That could have been part of it. But if you're looking at the recent sales for a 4.5 for Avengers #1, this is obviously a significantly lower sale. And this one did not have any restoration issues for the book based on what I could see there. It was clearly not a perfect book, but it was, about as clean as one as I've seen on eBay recently. But dating back to all these other sales, 2025, 4,000, 3,480, 3,600. So you feel like a 4.5 should sell, let's call it in that 3,500 to 4,000 range. Maybe, 34 to 3,800 to tighten it up even more. This one sold at 2025. And, here is the item description didn't really have much on there. It was really just an AI written description on there. And again, it was a fairly low feedback seller. Obviously, the back of the book had some staining on it, things like that. But it had some Marvel chipping on the right-hand side, which is common for a lot of these Silver Age books. But I don't know. I mean, at first blush to me, if you ended up getting the book from the seller, again, the seller was a little dicey there in terms of the feedback. I think that's a pretty awesome book. Pretty good deal relative to where it's been selling for recently. So there are still some good deals on big books on eBay. This is one we've talked about in the past on the channel. I don't know what it is. I just always love this book. It's The Origin of Cyclops, X-Men #40 from 1968. And it's got Frankenstein. So it's kind of a weird mishmash of, horror monsters and superheroes, but I've just always liked it. And the fact that Frankenstein is like grabbing the back wall of whatever it is, the ship, and is able to kind of curl the metal there. But I just thought this was such a cool book the first time I ever saw it. X-Men meets Frankenstein, enough said. I don't know. It's just a great looking mishmash, and it's got the origin of Cyclops in it, so it's kind of a secondary key. But it was a very high grade book, 9.2 off white to white pages, and sold for $350. It's not a particularly expensive book, but I just thought it was a book that was a good deal. I mean, this is a kind of a great looking book to me, and I wouldn't mind picking that up. I know I bid on one back on Comic Link. It's probably been a year or two now at least, but at least 2 years, I'd say. But it was about the similar grade, 9.2, 9.4, somewhere in there. But for a sub $500 book, I think that's a pretty awesome looking book. Next up, a few big Batman books that I've always loved. This is one I'm still on the hunt for to pair with my Batman 232, which we're going to cover in a second. But this is Detective Comics #411. in an 8.5 with off-white to white pages. Obviously had an overwrap on the left-hand side, but it's the first appearance of Talia al Ghul, the daughter of Ra's al Ghul, and it's a great Neal Adams cover. It's kind of like the League of Assassins, if you will, and I just think this cover is just so awesome. Neal Adams books really do it for me, as you guys know. And that one sold for $5.99. I would like to probably be in the nines and above for a Detective Comics number 411. We'll see if it ever happens, but this is a really great book and one I've always wanted to get to pair with this book, which I do have. And this is Batman number 232 from 1971, the first appearance of Ra's al Ghul, the origin of Batman and Robin retold. It's a pretty classic cover. I always love this cover, always. And I did pick this one up from an Instagram seller way back when. And this was a 9.2 with white pages as well. And it sold for $10.80. And looking at the Go Collect data, you can see clearly that this book is on the downswing. So for a 9.2, which is what this one was, it sold for $10.80. The fair market value a year ago was about $1,100. So you could say it's relatively staying steady. In a 9.4, this book a year ago was averaging about $14.23. The 90-day was $1,500. So it's kind of also staying relatively steady. But when you get into the 9.8s, which there's only 78 of them on the census, a year ago this was going for $9,200. But the 30-day moving average is $8,400. So I'd like to take a look at that one. That was a heritage auction sale. And so it's been kind of all over the map, but been pretty consistently since April of this year on the downswing. So in April, it was selling for $10,800. In June, it was selling for $9,000. And in September, it's selling for $8,400. So that's a pretty big drop. You could argue about a 20% drop in the book over the last 6 months or so. And you can see what it's done since the peak prices, which again were in June of 2022, what I consider to be the peak. It was selling for $23,600, and now it's going for about a third of that price. So pretty wild to see that drop in a 9.8 for a book that, you know, at a 9.8, it's in the top 2.2% for graded copies. Only 78 of them on the census, but you know, people just don't seem to care right now, and it is what it is. I think that's an interesting concept, is that the very high grade books are kind of dropping, whereas the 9.4s, 9.6s, 9.2s are relatively staying stable. And that's the danger you take when you go for those super high level books, high grade books that are very few in census. You got to pay a big multiple relative to the 9.2, 9.4, 9.6. And it's very susceptible to price corrections. And that seems to be what's happening right now for the 9.8 for Batman number 232. A couple of interesting sales for Hulk 181. I thought this was a great buy in a 6.0 with white pages, pretty nicely centered with the custom label for Hulk 181, the first full appearance of Wolverine. That one sold for $24.25 in an auction. That's not a bad deal in my mind. And I don't know what you guys think, but this one was an 8.0 off-white pages, but it was signed by Hugh Jackman. I'm not sure that I would take such a big book and get it signed by an actor. Maybe that's just me, but to me, I think it's okay. If you want to get a signature series, to me, it makes more sense to get the cover artist or the story artist to get it to sign that versus Hugh Jackman. I just don't think it matches well. But it did sell. It was listed for $66.99, and the best offer accepted on it was $5,500. But to me, it just seems like a weird concept of getting an actor to sign the first appearance book. To me, I think if you're going to get Hugh Jackman's signature, get it on a modern book with like a nice cover. But I think it probably detracts from... I would rather put it this way. I'd rather have the 6.0 white pager for $2,400 versus this 8.0 off-white pager signed by Hugh Jackman that sold for $5,500. I think the 6.0 is a better deal and presents better. That's just me, though. Next up, Star Wars number 1. I've got a few Star Wars books. 9.8. This one sold in a buy it now for $2,900. That's a big number. I think in the current environment, I would probably aim for a lot lower. Try to aim for $2,500 or below. Even really $2,400 now. Star Wars number 2. is one that we have not seen in a 9.8 on eBay in a while, at least in my mind. So I did pull up the Go Collect data for this one. This is obviously the first full appearance of Obi-Wan, Han Solo, Chewbacca inside the comics. And it's a great cover. It's one I'd still like to get to pair with my 9.8 version of Star Wars #1. This one sold for $1,300. And I was like, that seems a little high to me. So I pulled up the Go Collect data, and it looks like for a fixed auction, buy it now situation, it's kind of in line. This is the sale, obviously, at September 27th for $12.99. In July, it sold for $13.90 in a fixed price auction, or in a fixed price sale. But in an auction, the last auction, as I suspected, it's been a while on eBay. It was in June of 2025, and that one sold for $10.87. So, if you're looking at the last two sales, you're thinking, okay, $1,300, but to me, if you can be patient or look at Comic Link or look at some of the other auction houses, ideally Comic Link, I think you can probably get it in that $1,000 to $1,100 range versus paying $1,300 for it, plus sales tax. Next up was a Star Wars 42 Direct Edition at auction. That one sold for $720. Pretty good deal there. Obviously, the first appearance of Boba Fett and Yoda in standard size comics, standard US comics. But this one has definitely come back down, continues to hover around $700, $750. This was a really interesting sale. This was one that I had in my What to Buy video, and there's not many of these on the census. I looked it up. I didn't pull it up this time on the Go Collect data, but I remember when I was doing it for the What to Buy video that the last 9.8 for this book, which is Marvel Super Special number 27, which is the movie adaptation of Return of the Jedi. This is a very low census count book, and the last sale was over a year ago for $450. And this one, in an auction, sold for less than half that number at $195. This is a larger magazine-style book, but I thought that was a great deal. It's got beautiful cover art on it. You can see there it's got Vader on the back and then Luke on the front, very stylized in terms of the presentation for the adaptation. So obviously the comic book adaptation was split into, I think, 5 parts, whatever it was. But this is kind of like a super magazine size book that kind of does the whole adaptation in kind of a condensed format. So really cool book. Low census count, 9.8 with white pages, and it sold for less than half of what it sold for the last time one of these came up for sale on eBay. Next up, another very tough to find 9.8. This is kind of a graphic novel, and it's the Clone Wars Defenders of the Lost Temple. It's a one-shot from Dark Horse Comics from 2013. This is actually the first appearance of Bo-Katan, Pre Vizsla, as well as the Darksaber. And again, it's not a comic book. It's really more of like a graphic novel type of thing, but it's very rare, very sought after in a 9.8. And it sold for $850, which is well down. Don't get me wrong. This number is well below where this one used to sell during peak comic book prices, but it's a cool book and just an interesting one that hardly ever comes up for sale in a 9.8 on eBay. Or if it does, it's always way overpriced. But this number is a little bit more in keeping with FMV. Another interesting sale was this one. This was Aliens #1, which we know in a 9.8 is very, very pricey. But this was a 9.6 with white pages, and it was signed by a number of the actors and so forth from the movie. So you can see there. The only one it doesn't seem to have is Sigourney Weaver. That would really set it over the top. But it's got a number of different actors that were in it, signed by the cast ×7, first print. 9.6 white pages for Aliens #1, which is the first appearance of aliens in comic books. In a 9.8, it's like $3,000 plus, but this one sold for $2,000 and a 9.6 with a 7-time signature. Really cool presentation there with the silver marker used for the signatures on that dark black, that really black background there. So very cool book. G.I. Joe #1 in a direct edition. That one sold for $740. That's a pretty good deal. This one's kind of come back down. We saw it kind of get down into this $750 range, and then for a little while there, it kind of bumped back up in that $850 to $875, $900 range. But it seems to kind of come back down to earth a little bit. And it looks like in a direct edition 9/8 white pager, you can get it for about $700 to $750 right now. This I thought was another interesting sale. I'd be curious to see if this one comes out in a movie. It seems ripe for a movie, given the success of a lot of video game adaptations lately. We know that Call of Duty was just announced as an upcoming movie, which makes a lot of sense. Super Mario Brothers, Legend of Zelda is coming out. We obviously had success with Mario Brothers as well as the Minecraft movie. It seems like it goes in waves with Hollywood as to whether, you know, video game adaptations do well or do poorly. A lot of it is just how they take the time to make a good movie. And Mario, if you haven't seen the Super Mario Brothers movie, it's actually really good. It's really funny. Jack Black was hilarious as Bowser. And I have not seen the Minecraft movie. My kids saw it. They said it was fine for what it was. But I would love to see a God of War adaptation. That is one of the greatest video games ever made, in my opinion, the first God of War. And this is the first appearance of Kratos from God of War in comics. And this was a 9.9 for that book. And it sold for $619 in an auction. But I don't know who they would get. I mean, obviously The Rock probably would be the easiest, but I just feel like people are kind of exhausted with The Rock. I hope they get somebody different. I don't know who it would be. It would have to be somebody that could really portray the angst and anger and the size of Kratos. But I would love to see this movie get made. I think it would be a really cool movie. And I have to admit, I am kind of excited about Call of Duty. I think that would be a really great movie if they do it right. Hopefully they don't cheeseball it up. But next up, I got a couple of sales before we wrap things up. I got a couple of sales for Ultimate Fallout 4 in the first print. This one in an auction sold for $10.47, which is up a little bit. We've seen them kind of go $9.50 for a little while there, but it seems to be creeping back up just a little bit. And then this one sold for $1,001 in a best offer accepted. So $900, $950 is the ideal price point, but at least on eBay, it seems like they go a little bit higher than on Comic Link and elsewhere. So I hope that you enjoyed this look at recent sales for CGC graded comic books. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll be back soon.